Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 8th of January, now it's 15 past 9 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Lenko and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be a little bit late in the afternoon, in which I'll share additional news that will be reported by Russian media. And also I will share latest report of Russian Defense Ministry on progress of special military operation during the previous 24 hours. And after that, on my Rumble channel, I will try to conduct a live stream with the next episode of Telegram Reports, a program that is exclusively made for Rumble, for my Rumble channel, in attempt to generate additional interest among members of our community to join Rumble channel also. And well, if you are watching this video on YouTube, please consider to join our community on Rumble. You can see links under this video in description box or in the pinned comment. It has similar name, Lenko Opinion. Unfortunately, yesterday I could not manage to conduct simultaneous live stream on my YouTube channel and Rumble channel because of some technical issues, but hopefully I will manage to do live stream today, and if it works out, then I will make a Telegram Reports program in the live stream during the live streams from Monday to Friday. Well, that's been on Rumble, and well, that's been said. If you did not see yesterday's live stream on YouTube, you can check it out. It was a very nice conversation, very interesting conversation with members of our community. I did share some additional news that was reported by Russian media for that time, and well, you may find it interesting. It's on the first page on my YouTube channel. That's been said, let's talk about news now. And first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. Breaking news for this moment is that Russian armed forces conducted the second wave of missile and drone strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of Kiev regime for today. First wave was at night time, and just about hours ago, second wave of missile strike took place. And according to reports from number of Telegram channels, during this second strike, military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky's regime was targeted in Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson, Nikolaev, Odessa, Khmelnytsky, Zhytomyr, and Lvov regions. Maybe some other areas, in some other areas also military infrastructure was targeted during the day. Russian Defense Ministry probably will share with us additional information, and almost the same areas were targeted during the first wave of drone and missile strikes. Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, and so on. So Russian armed forces are continuing neutralizing military and logistical capabilities of Kiev regime, and also military industrial complex, as we did see during the previous strikes. Russian General Staff is quite determined to minimize production capabilities of whatever remains from Ukraine's military industrial complex. That's been said, well, let's talk about line of contact now. And according to reports from Russian military channels and Russian media, there was no crucial changes on any of the sectors of the front line. Operational pause is holding, although main hotspots are still the same. In Kherson direction, it's Krinky area, in Zaporozhye sector, Orekhov bridgehead, namely, more precisely, of course, Rabotina, Verbovo areas, settlements, and initiative, of course, is in Russian hands when it comes to Sovdanetsk direction, Vremevsky salient, and Novomikhalovka. Settlements are still hotspots, and no changes on the line of contact, no significant changes on the line of contact. When it comes to Donetsk sector, also a usual story. Avdiivka and flanks of Bakhmut are main hotspots, no significant changes on line of contact. And when it comes to northern sectors of the front line, it's mainly artillery duels between the sides, local scale skirmishes, nothing in a big scale. Although most likely in upcoming days, Russian armed forces will begin assault on Terny settlement and the Ampolovka settlement on the northern flank of Seversk. This is Krasny Liman direction, of course, and I believe it will not take long, maybe a week or two, and Ukrainian armed forces will probably retreat from these settlements towards the right bank of the Zhiribets river. And when it comes to Kupiansk sector of the front line, main hotspot is still this Sinkovka settlement. At this point, for the last several days, Russian armed forces are conducting heavy artillery and missile strikes, drone strikes in direction of Ukrainian positions in this settlement. And I guess after a day or two of these artillery preparations, we may probably see another wave of ground operations from Russian armed forces to establish control over this settlement. Although it's not really necessary, because Sinkovka did become somewhat a trap for Ukrainian armed forces, and Russian side may use this opportunity to neutralize more and more Ukrainian units in this settlement, because at this point, strategically speaking, it does not really make any significant difference who controls Sinkovka. And if Russian forces are basically provoking Kiev regime to send more and more reinforcements in direction of Sinkovka, of course it makes it much easier for Russian side, for Russian long-range artillery, from Russian frontline aviation, to deal with this additional Ukrainian reinforcements in this area. So I guess Sinkovka may remain as a kind of trap for a while, until Russian side will decide to conduct large-scale offensive operations. That's a possibility. And when it comes to large-scale operation itself, yesterday during the live stream, I did spoke about it. One of the members of our community did ask me about possible directions of Russian winter offensive, if it will take place. And I did spoke about this topic, and at this point, because I did not see some significant indicators that Ukrainian armed forces are collapsing right now or will collapse in next several weeks, I'm not as sure really that as I used to be, like, let's say, months ago, that winter offensive from Russian side will take place at all. Although theoretically, of course, Russian side may conduct offensive operations in Sumy direction, from north, for example, in Sumy direction, Chernigov direction, Kharkov direction. But yet again, this, as I understand, this strategy of active defense or mobile warfare, mobile defense, main task for this strategy is to demilitarize as many units of enemy forces as possible on more or less same line of contact. And once enemy forces will begin to collapse, then is the time to conduct large-scale offensive operations. And until we are not seeing cracks appear in defense lines of Ukrainian armed forces on entire sectors, not just in one area or two areas, but on entire sectors of the front, until that, I don't think a large-scale Russian offensive will take place. So therefore, I'm becoming a little skeptical that we will see Russian winter offensive. Although, because according to Russian Defense Ministry's reports, Ukrainian armed forces, even these times, while operational pauses on a line of contact, even this time, in these times, Kiev regime is losing about brigade every single week in losses of manpower and military equipment. And I don't think Kiev regime is able to sustain such a high casualties for a long, maybe several months, and that's it. So even though there is high expectations of Russian winter offensive, it may not take place at all, and we may see Russian offensive operations sometime in the spring, or maybe even in the summertime. And I would not be surprised even if Russian side will force Kiev regime to capitulate while maintaining current line of contact, because at some point, it's obvious that at some point Ukrainian armed forces will begin to collapse and Kiev regime will have no other option other than capitulate. So let's see how will situation develop, but at this point, Russian armed forces are quite successfully using this active defense strategy, and I don't see any reason to change anything right now. When Ukrainian armed forces began to collapse, yes, then maybe we will see large-scale offensive operations. Although, yet again, I mean, Kiev regime may capitulate exactly once this collapse begins of Ukrainian defense lines. But anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian air defense systems shut down Ukrainian S-200 missile over the Belgorod. S-200 missiles are, of course, air defense system missiles, but they are converted so that they can conduct ground-to-ground targeting, and Kiev regime quite actively using this type of missiles, and one of them was shut down over in the Belgorod region. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that Denis Pushilin, head of DPR, Donetsk People's Republic, during his last interview with RIA Novosti, spoke about Odessa and Nikolaev region, and he said that this region's historical mistake has to be dealt with, and Odessa and Nikolaev, these Russian cities, have to come back to Russia. I believe this is one of the first statements of high-ranking Russian official about Odessa and Nikolaev, direct statement. And Pushilin was very direct. He said that Russian side has to liberate Odessa and Nikolaev regions. And it will happen. You know my take on the situation, on Ukrainian story. I said many times before that once this conflict will end in Ukraine, Russia will control at least entire southern eastern parts of Ukraine, from Kharkov region to Odessa region. All of it. From Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, and Nikolaev and Odessa regions. Although my belief is that most likely Russian side will control entire Ukraine, with the exception of western regions of that failed state, which will become under control of its western neighbors, namely Poland, Hungary, Romania. So quite interesting. I don't think Denis Pushilin would make such a statement if this topic is not discussed among high-ranking officials. So I guess this is somewhat attitude of Moscow also, that Odessa and Nikolaev has to be liberated and returned to Russia. Let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, this is also quite interesting. Former General Prosecutor of Ukraine, Yuri Lutsenko, did made a quite interesting statement during his interview on one of the Ukrainian channels. Well, he said that Ukraine lost about 500,000 military personnel killed and wounded, and society has to know about it. Society has to be informed. Otherwise, once this information will become known to people in Ukraine, it will create shock effect, and it may destabilize Ukraine internally, which is quite true, one may say. Although, me personally, I think losses on part of Ukrainian side are at least 2 or 3 times more. That's how I see. Ukraine already lost 500,000, about 500,000 military personnel, KIA, killed in action. And if that's the case, and many military experts are talking about it, including in the West. For example, Colonel McGregor did mention this approximately this number, and he probably has good enough sources. Also, Scott Ritter did spoke about this, and if Ukraine of Kiev regime lost 500,000 military personnel, then usually number of wounded personnel is 2 or at least 2 or 3 times more. At least 2 or 3 times more. So since beginning of special military operation, Kiev regime lost 1.52 million military personnel killed and wounded. Killed and wounded. 1.5, 2 million military personnel. That's real numbers. That's real numbers. Not 500,000 killed and wounded. That's a tragedy, of course. That's a tragedy for Ukrainian society, but that's what happens when society is in the role of passive observer and allows the so-called elites to act as crazy as Zelensky's regime did. But it is what it is. Let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that, Scott Ritter, I just mentioned Scott Ritter, another US military expert, well-known worldwide military expert, who was asked about possible negotiations between Moscow and Kiev. And he said during his interview on US Tour of Duty channel on YouTube that there will be no negotiations. There will be no negotiations. Russia will bring on the table ultimatum, and Kiev will be forced to agree on this ultimatum because Kiev will have no other option. And not just Kiev, by the way, but Western ruling class. That's the main topic here, that Western ruling class will have no other option other than agree on Russian terms to end this, to end hostilities. So I have to agree with Scott Ritter. There can be no negotiations between Moscow and Kiev at this point. Kiev had a chance in 2022, in March, April, but after involvement of United Kingdom and US, leadership of Ukraine made the decision to throw away Russian proposals on peace deal, and after that Kiev lost any chances to negotiate anything with Russia. Kiev will only agree on terms that Russia will bring to the table. RIA Novosti is reporting that, and dear friends, I did share this information yesterday during the live stream, also on YouTube. And I will repeat this information now also, because RIA Novosti did write this news based on statements of Alexander Mercuris, host of Duran channel, Duran show, when he was commenting on Zaluzhny's recent statements, and Alexander Mercuris did pointed out or highlighted that Zaluzhny did not look like someone with high confidence. He is somewhat panicking, and he is hysterical which is true, by the way, which is true. Some very strange things are happening in Ukraine. At one hand, Zaluzhny is criticizing Zelensky and his associates for this mobilization campaign, forceful mobilization campaign in Ukraine, when people are kidnapped all around the Ukrainian territory. And in other hand, the very same Zaluzhny is on daily basis now are crying for more people in military. So in one hand, he wants to gain some political points among society that he's disagree with these methods that are used by Kiev regime. But in other hand, he still demands more and more people to be mobilized. And he is hysterical because if you remember, a day or two ago, he went on a rant and he was basically crying about how he gonna fight when he don't have men, and he was basically asking MPs to go to fight, and he was truly hysterical. He was truly hysterical. So RIA Novosti did pay attention to statements of Alexander Mercuris, and rightly so, because Duran Show and Alex Christoforou and Alexander Mercuris, they do a great job to inform society worldwide, and it's good that Russian media outlets, major media outlets, are paying attention to their programming. Next information is about Middle East. RT is reporting that Israel would not win a war with Hezbollah, according to US officials. Quite interesting statement. A secret assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, in Washington has found that Israeli forces would find it difficult to succeed in two-front war against Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Washington Post reported on Sunday the Israeli Defense Forces have engaged in tit-for-tat exchanges of fire with Hezbollah since the start of the war with Hamas in October. Initially limited in scale, Hezbollah pounding of Israeli intelligence base with missiles on Saturday in response to Israel's assassination of senior Hamas leader in Beirut several days earlier has marked a significant escalation. While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to make a fundamental change to the security situation along the Lebanese border, American officials have privately warned him against opening a second front, the Washington Post reports. Well, Israeli army is struggling with Hamas. I mean, everyone should notice this. And when it comes to Hezbollah is, well, in my opinion, significantly more capable military force than Hamas. Hezbollah has significantly more capable military wing that Hamas does. So I guess U.S. Intelligence community is correct if they are recommending Netanyahu to stay away from two opening second front against Hezbollah, because without using nuclear weapons, IDF will never defeat Hezbollah. It's just not happening. It's not possible, even on theoretical level. So it is what it is. But unfortunately, Netanyahu's government may go ahead with the escalation, further escalation with Hezbollah, because maybe they are hoping that it's not just Israeli forces, but also NATO member states will fight alongside of IDF against Hezbollah. Maybe that's strategy of Netanyahu's government. And after all, dear friends, I said many times before that the ruling class of the West, in my understanding, wants to provoke regional conflict in the Middle East, to distract shipping in Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait, so that China will be cut off from energy sources of Middle East. And I believe Western ruling class will probably influence Netanyahu's government to do everything exactly in direction of provoking regional conflict. And if Israel begins full-scale war against Hezbollah, then I guess it will be only a matter of time, and one way or another, but Iran will be provoked also. And once Iran is involved, then you can, you can say they will be no navigation no more in, most likely, in the Persian Gulf or Hormuz Strait. And it will devastate, of course, not just the region, this global Middle Eastern conflict, if it will be provoked, but if it will devastate the entire world. But yet again, at this point, we clearly are seeing more and more indicators that region have been pushed towards Middle East have been pushed towards regional conflict, unfortunately, and that's probably one of the reasons why U.S. intelligence community is commenting on such topics. Let's continue. And TASS news agency is reporting that, well, U.S. lawmakers agreed on a new budget for government. New budget for government in US which for 2024, and this new budget will be 1.6 trillion US dollars, and from this amount 886 billion gonna be spent on defense. Can you imagine that? Almost half of the budget is going to formally defense, but in reality in pockets of US military industrial complex. That's what it is. And corrupt officials of US. And of course, in addition to this 1.6 trillion, Washington will probably borrow another $2-3 trillion in 2024. That's quite possible. Anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that Speaker of House of Representatives in US, Mike Johnson, did spoke about once again on Biden's financial and military aid package, for combined aid package for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and also border security. And Mike Jones said that US Republicans in Congress still are against voting in favor of Biden's initiative, because they are demanding answers from White House, especially on strategy of US when it comes to Ukraine crisis. What is the strategy of US? What White House is wants to achieve by spending additional 61 billion US dollars, as it is articulated in Biden's initiative. And well, I don't think White House will explain to US Republicans anything, but eventually, because this is last paycheck for US military industrial complex and corrupt officials, eventually, of course, Republicans and Democrats will find common ground, and they will trade a little bit among each other, and eventually they will vote, of course, for this Biden's initiative. That's my understanding of the situation. In next 1 or 2 weeks, voting will probably take place. And well, only question is, will they agree to allocate all 61 billion to Kiev regime as it was demanded by Biden, or they will agree to allocate only like few dozen, 30, let's say 30, 40 billion. That's the only question. How much money will be allocated? How much US taxpayers' money will be allocated for Kiev regime? Formally for Kiev regime, but in reality for US corrupt officials and US military industrial complex, because of course, vast significant part of that amount will eventually end up on the bank accounts of military industrial complex and corrupt officials. RT is also reporting, and this is, I did spoke about it during yesterday's live stream, and I will repeat it if I may, that Biden did not knew that Pentagon's chief was in hospital for 3 days. So Pentagon kept US President Joe Biden's administration in the dark for 3 days about hospitalization of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Politico reported on Saturday, citing sources. So head of Pentagon was not available, was not in condition to act on its duty, and White House was not informed about it. President of US was not informed, but okay, President, if Biden was even informed, he will probably didn't understand what he was told. But his administration was not informed. And this is interesting because, of course, Lloyd Austin is a representative of US military industrial complex. He is an appointee of US military industrial complex. And that's attitude of this immensely powerful force in US military industrial complex towards political leadership of the country. They don't even think necessary to inform White House that formerly head of defense ministry is hospitalized and are not able to conduct his duties. This is crazy, man. This is, I mean, I don't know how it's even possible, but that's attitude, man. That's how irrelevant political leadership of US really is. And this information definitely highlights who is a real decision maker in US. And of course, it's military industrial complex, other sectors of, and other corporations in other sectors of US. That's groups that are making real decisions, not the politicians in White House or Congress or Senate. They all are basically puppets of these powerful groups that are pulling the strings in US. That's how it is. And behind these corporations probably are just a few families, just a few clans that are controlling all of it. And that's exactly the groups that I'm calling when I say true rulers of the West. I mean exactly those small groups of people, small clans, whatever they are, that are ruling Western world in reality. Anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting, this is quite interesting, that Trump's rival wants US out of NATO, according to Politico. Vivek Ramaswamy believes the alliance, North Atlantic Alliance, expansionism is a risk, sparking major conflict with Russia. And, well, Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy has signaled that he intends to pull the US out of NATO if he wins the 2024 elections, Politico reported on Friday, citing sources. Well, I'm not gonna say that I'm too interested in US internal policies, but time to time I do watch some programs to know more or less what is going on in US, and I never heard anything like this from Vivek Ramaswamy. He may be critical of NATO expansion or US current foreign policies, but he never said that he will pull out US from NATO. So this is pure propaganda. This type of articles are for internal use in US to demonize, in this case, Vivek Ramaswamy, although it would not work, because I don't think US citizens really care about NATO that much. And if you conduct survey, most likely majority of US citizens would not even name 10 countries, 10 members of NATO out of few dozen. So I don't think they're gonna, Politico or whoever is behind this hit piece, gonna achieve their goal, because who cares in US, man, about NATO? Come on. Maybe media outlets, maybe MSM is trying to push this narrative that NATO is so important, and NATO and NATO and NATO, but ordinary US citizens somewhere in Oklahoma, man, do they care about NATO? Really? Of course, no. But when it comes to Vivek Ramaswamy himself, I don't think he's, has any real chances to become president of US, but he may run as a vice president. That's possibility, maybe. So who knows? Anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting that Italy calls for European army. That's another craziness that is going on. So without shared military, EU countries are defenseless sparrows in a world of eagles, Antonio Tajani has said. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani has called on EU leaders to establish a common European army without a joint military. Without joint military, Tajani argues, the bloc cannot have a credible foreign policy. If we want to be bearers of peace, what is bearers? Bearers? I don't know this word, but anyway, if we want to be bearers of peace in the world, we need the European army, Tajani told Italy's La Stampa newspaper on Sunday. Well, the topic of European army is not new, really. It's at least for 2 decades now. This topic has been discussed more or less in Europe. Especially this topic was active like decade ago, when relevance of NATO significantly decreased. But after Western ruling class did provoke this conflict in Ukraine, well, NATO definitely regained momentum, and NATO is a major force now in the Western world, and I don't think Washington and London will allow European states to begin playing their own games, like creating European army outside of this NATO institution, which is totally controlled by Washington. So this is just the talks. This is just the talks. I don't think EU member states will ever be able to create European army, and I don't think it will even work, because there's too many countries, too many differences. Historically, combined armies of European states were almost always defeated, and I don't think it will work. But yet again, this statement is important because it highlights once again that bureaucrats, Brussels bureaucrats, and forces that are behind all this idea of EU, in reality, they want to create basically dictatorship in the European continent. They want to take out all the rights from states, EU member states. They won't take their sovereignty. They won't take their armies, their police, everything. And they want to, have a control over every segment of life in European states. And this information definitely highlights this. Isn't it? Am I reading this picture wrongly? I don't think so. That's what they want. Forces that are behind this EU project, to unify, to solidify this quasi-state in some kind of empire, which will be run from Brussels by these crazy unelected bureaucrats, and used as a tool by true rulers of the West, like US is used for decades. But yet again, I don't think it will work, because Eurosceptics are on the rise, and I'm not even sure that in 15, 20, 30 years time, EU will still exist. Let's continue, and well, this is also quite interesting and somewhat funny news. Chinese missiles, according to Bloomberg, are filled with water instead of fuel. That's a level of journalism nowadays in the West, and Bloomberg, dear friends, is one of the major media outlets, isn't it, in the West? And well, this media outlet come up with such article, and this article is based on some unnamed sources in US military intelligence community, that because of corruption in China, Chinese armed forces are now paper tiger. They don't pose any threat, and even their missiles are filled with the water. Yet again, total BS, total nonsense, of course. But this type of articles will probably increase in numbers in upcoming weeks and months and years, because I believe Western ruling class wants to push this narrative that Chinese militaries are paper tigers, and no one should care if US will provoke military conflict with China, because China will be defeated in fairly short time. That's I believe attitude that the Western ruling class wants to push over our society, and unfortunately they will succeed if we take into account how powerful this MSM is in the West. But in reality, corruption is of course issue in every country. I mean, is corruption not an issue in US? They spend 800 billion on defense. Really, 800 billion on year terms, more or less. And you're gonna tell me that it's not a result of corruption, these huge sums that are directed to defense. Of course it's corruptions. US military, Pentagon buys, I don't know, man, everything in 10 times higher prices that's supposed to be. Do you remember some gas stations were built in Afghanistan for $60 million? Some simple gas stations, and these idiots in US so-called military intelligence are talking about corruption in other countries? Really? Come on, man. Corruption is an issue everywhere. Unfortunately, that's an issue everywhere. But to say that Chinese missiles are filled with water, this is a whole different level of craziness. And I'm 100% sure ruling class of the West wants to push now this narrative that Chinese militaries are paper tiger, and US citizens or Western citizens not to be wary if US will continue to escalate with China. That's what they want to do. But in reality, any conflict between China and the US will devastate entire world, not just these two countries, but entire world. And one should always remember that China is a nuclear power. According to different sources, it already has 300 to 500 nuclear weapons, most likely 700 or even more. And towards 2030, China is plans to triple its nuclear arsenal. So it will have a couple of thousand of nukes. And you're gonna call paper tiger country with few thousand nukes? Really? But you know, US MSM not gonna tell you this part of the story that China is nuclear power. No, they're gonna push this narrative that Chinese military really, I mean, their missiles are filled with water, Their tanks are made with cardboard, and their ships are not able to swim. They are, you know, just junk. When in reality, China is investing heavily in its military, and it's one of the most capable militaries at this point in the world. And what is most important, they have nukes. They have nukes. That's it. End of story. But anyway, man, level of degeneration of Western ruling class has no limits. I mean, so it is what it is. RT is reporting that oil prices may double, according to Goldman Sachs, if crisis in the Red Sea will spread into Persian Gulf and Hormuz Strait also, which is, well, I guess correct. One may argue how much oil prices will increase and how much damage to world economy will be done if regional conflict will erupt in Middle East, and Persian Gulf and Hormuz Strait will be shut down for shipping. But it will definitely devastate world. It will definitely devastate Middle East first of all, and then rest of the world. So let's hope there will be no regional conflict in the Middle East. With the exception of Israel's government, all other countries in the Middle East definitely are acting like adults, like responsible states, and they are exercising restraint on significant level. And we all see this, isn't it? Since the beginning of escalation, all regional countries are exercising restraint, and they are trying as much as they can to de-escalate. Not to escalate, but yet again, Netanyahu is a crazy, mad mass murderer, and his government is full of mass murderers and terrorists, and their Western masters also. Let's not forget that Netanyahu is nobody. He is a puppet of really powerful forces that are ruling not just Israel but Western world also, and if those crazies want to provoke regional war, unfortunately, it is high risk that they will succeed in it. They will use Netanyahu and his criminal gang any way they want to provoke regional conflict. That's unfortunate reality on the ground. And only so much can tolerate regional countries. Only so much provocations they can tolerate from Netanyahu's government. At some point they may be forced to respond, and that's it. The region will be in fire. So it's very high risk, and well, we can only hope that it will not go down this terrible way, and there will be no regional conflict. And this news is gonna be last news for today's first update. RT is reporting that new car sales are skyrocketed in Russia in 2023. Sales of new motor vehicles in Russia amounted to more than 1.3 million units in 2023, a 60% surge compared to previous year. The Ministry of Industry and Trade reported on Friday. So, well, quite interesting news, not just because of cars, but because this information highlights state in which Russian economy is right now, and society also, financially speaking, because cars are definitely not cheapest stuff that you can buy, especially new ones. And well, if 1.3 million cars are sold in country with a population about 150 million, then I guess society, and this is brand new cars, by the way. Of course, like 2, 3, 5 million cars have been sold also, but second hand, no one counts that. And well, I guess this number does indicate that economy is dealing with Western pressure more or less okay, and society is also in more or less more or less strong position. So that's why I wanted to share with you this information. Of course, it's all in every single case is unique, obviously. But if we are talking about in general terms, then this information definitely highlights that economy in Russia is doing okay despite Western pressure, and society is also in more or less okay situation when it comes to its finances. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to buy 1.3 million cars, man. Isn't it? New cars. So that's been said, let's end this video. Quite a long video still, 50 minutes, but hopefully you will find this update interesting, and if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and share video with your friends on links from both platforms, Rumble channel and YouTube channel. It will definitely help to develop this project a little bit faster. And if you think this channel, this project is interesting, useful, informative, and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.